Welcome back to Capital Politics. Today on the show, I'm joined by Kevin Preskenis, the National Student Coordinator for the Newt Gingrich campaign. So I want to talk to you about a couple of things, and the first would be his meteoric rise to the top of the polls.
Right.
Newt hasn't been a major political player since the 1990s. Why do you think now is the time that he's popped up back up?
Well, I don't think much has changed since the beginning of the campaign, the announcement of his candidacy, or for that matter, since he entered politics in the 1970s. But I think the American people are now realizing through his performance in the debates, through the content he's posting on the website, and the 21st Century Contract with America, and a few other bold policy proposals he's outlined over the last few weeks, that this is an election about substance. It's an election about experience, and we've tried before with putting style over substance, and it hasn't worked very well. And I think Americans across the country, whether it's Iowa, South Carolina, or New Hampshire, or just nationally, are realizing that this election will have consequences. This is a very important election for America's future, not just domestically, but also foreign policy-wise. And they're seeing that Newt, through his performance and his policy proposals, is the best candidate out there to defeat Barack Obama in 2012 and put America back on the right track.
Now, he's been campaigning pretty heavily longer than a lot of the other candidates. If you look at, going to CPAC and getting in touch with conservative voters way before the presidential campaign was even launched. Do you think that's part of why he's becoming so popular with the conservative voters right now?
Oh, certainly. I mean, everyone in the GOP has recognized that Newt has always had a special role to play in coming up with new ideas, bold solutions. He's been a citizen activist since he left the House of Representatives in the 1990s. He's founded a variety of small businesses and think tanks that have helped him be really prepared and equipped to deal with some of the issues we're facing as a country today. He's had those resources to think and to write and to explore new solutions for America. And I think people that have been paying attention to politics and watching Fox News over the years have seen that he's a pretty smart guy and offers a lot of interesting ideas.
Now, one of those ideas is his alternative to Social Security, which would allow the youth to bypass Social Security and instead invest in private stocks. Do you want to tell us a little more about that?
Sure. Well, it starts with the premise that Social Security is close to being a broken system. I mean, by the year 2037, the Social Security Trust Fund will be virtually bankrupt. And if we continue along the current model, we're going to have to double the Social Security tax rate from somewhere around 15.2% to 30%. And Newt looked at it from the outside, from someone who has had experience both in the private sector and government, and recognized that Social Security is virtually independent of the free market. And that would probably be the only way to actually resurrect the system. Now, he's looked at a couple different systems. There's a model in Chile, which has actually been remarkably successful, and Galveston County in Texas has also employed the system. And the idea is simple. If you prefer to stay on a government plan, you're absolutely capable of doing that. However, if at any point, and this isn't necessarily for youth, if you're 45 and you've been paying into the Social Security Trust Fund for years, you can opt into the system as well, where you can work with the government to set up a private plan of investment managed by a separate for-profit management company with a variety of investments that are tailored to you, and you can contribute your contribution to that account. And according to Peter Ferrara, who's been working with Newt Gingrich for many years as an economist, he believes that this will not only grow the American economy, it will also grow the rewards for the American people that are collecting benefits from this program once they're eligible.
How do you get the youth right now to trust the market, though, especially since it's been so volatile in the past few years?
Well, I mean, his plan actually has a safety net for that. If hypothetically someone has been investing into a private fund for a certain amount of years, and once they're eligible, they're not receiving the benefits they would have received under the normal Social Security system, the Treasury will write them a check. But the idea is, we believe as conservatives that the free market has an important role to play in generating profit and generating results. And we believe that with this plan, we will create more money for the economy, we will grow the economy, and we'll also grow the, what individual Americans are receiving every single month.
Now, one of the things that the Gingrich campaign has been criticized for is the idea of American exceptionalism. And, it's a very different foreign policy plan that he has than some of the other candidates right now. can you tell us a little more about that and how this would improve our standing in the world?
Sure. I mean, this is not a new concept. I mean, American exceptionalism goes back several years. More recently, people will remember Ronald Reagan talking about American exceptionalism. It's not the idea that America is the best country on earth. It's the idea that America has a certain role to play. America has been extremely successful because of certain founding principles that emphasize liberty, free markets, religion, and he believes that a foreign policy in America, the most powerful country on earth, needs to be honest about its objectives overseas and abroad, and honest about who our enemies are and confronting them head on, because they do pose a grave threat to our liberty. They are the antithesis of liberty, and Newt believes that those people need to be confronted directly and very clearly as well, and that's something he's been very critical of the Obama administration for not displaying.
And as far as transparency goes, do you think that he's going to try and top the Barack Obama administration as in transparency in his presidential reign?
Oh, certainly. I mean, the Obama administration campaigned on this idea of transparency. He's violated a lot of his transparent promises with the first bill he signed into office. Newt Gingrich doesn't believe he can be the leader and the leader alone. He believes that Americans have to be with him in order to achieve success and progress in this country, and that's why he wants to include Americans as part of his very promise. I mean, he's talked about on the inauguration day, he's going to sign in executive orders that American people have directly suggested to him that he thinks are also good ideas as well. He wants Americans to be with him, not necessarily for him, and that's why he wants Americans to be as involved as possible in the Gingrich administration.
Now, as far as the Social Security plan goes, he's laid out these broad ideas, but if he's all for transparency, is there going to be a concrete plan set out online or available for people to look at?
Sure. You can go to newt.org/Social Security and you can learn more about his plan. He is going to be unveiling new details as they're doing research. There's a 49-page summary and explanation of his plan available at newt.org. I'd encourage everyone to go check that out. And as we continue to do research, we have a policy team that's working around the clock on a variety of issues, bringing up new ideas. We're bringing on more policy people as our campaign grows. So sure, as we learn new details and as we come up with new bullets and plans, they will certainly be released, and Newt will be one who would very much like to share them with the American people.
Great. And how do you think that the Gingrich campaign is going to try to reach out to student voters right now? Because that's really important in this particular presidential campaign.
Sure, and we've actually been doing that now. The last week, the Students with Newt Coalition has expanded to over 55 college campuses across the country. We're setting up a national youth board right now. We have 5 regional chairs, and they're assembling their boards of directors right now. And the idea is very simple. Newt wants to have a conversation with people on America's college campuses. And these are people that are studying every single day history, economics, political science, and Newt wants to include them in the conversation. And just like Citizens with Newt, this is Students with Newt. These are not people that are simply just going to set up a group and say, we're voting for Newt Gingrich, let's all go to the polls and watch the debates and cheer for him there. He wants people to have a conversation with him, to come up with their own ideas, to host debates on college campuses, to write op-eds for their school newspapers. And they don't necessarily have to be Republicans. He's talking about generational growth and how this election will affect this generation. And he wants to include them as directly as possible.
Are there any new plans for the upcoming months? Other than
well, keep going. I mean, we've certainly done well over the last few weeks. We're going to expand. We're raising a lot more money than we have in the past. I think we have a goal this week of raising $1.5 million. And I'm not on the finance team, but everyone's really confident with where everything's going. We're hiring new staff in Iowa. We recently set up offices in New Hampshire and South Carolina, and those are growing really quickly. And I've never met anyone in my life that has as much energy as Newt Gingrich, so he's willing to keep going as long as there's a place for him to speak and people to talk with about America. So that's the plan right now, just keep going.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.